What's going on, you guys, and welcome back to the Push the Tempo podcast. I'm your boy Aray, and I'm with my guy Kyle. So, yep, this is the 10th episode of the Push the Tempo podcast. So, we're really out here, and in honor of that, we're gonna kind of reflect on some of the takes that we had before the season started. We're gonna reflect on our season, and I guess season awards, and kind of just go from there. So, with that being said, you want to start us off, Kyle?
Sure. So we figured we'd go back and look at our season predictions, not only with who's going to win the championship, but season award predictions as well. So do you want to start off with Rookie of the Year? Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's start from there.
All right. So for my Rookie of the Year, I had Killian Hayes as my pick. So far, that hasn't really worked out. He's injured right now. I believe it's like a hip injury that I'm not sure if it required surgery or not, but he's going to be out, I believe, anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. So that kind of puts a huge dampener on his rookie season. And before he went out, he was struggling a little bit as well to create shots, and he was a little inefficient playing for the Detroit Pistons, who aren't very good right now either. So it's safe to say that that pick hasn't worked out for me. Who did you have as your rookie of the year pick?
Well, Killian Hayes was definitely a guy that I was kind of intrigued with. I had him in mind, but to be honest, he wasn't my clear favorite. My favorites were between LaMelo Ball and Cole Anthony, and I actually decided to lean closer towards Cole Anthony. And one of the things that I said about Cole Anthony was that it's going to be hard for him to get an opportunity to start over Markel Fultz, who started off the season really well, but unfortunately he got injured. And also Michael Carter Williams is there. So I kind of thought that, he probably won't get the opportunity, but I'm still going to go with him. And now he does have the opportunity. And he's made some pretty good highlight plays, including some ankle breakers and a game winner. But he hasn't been at that level where I can consider him to be the best rookie in this year's draft. I mean, LaMelo Ball is definitely the clear favorite. I don't know if you were going to agree with that or disagree, but LaMelo Ball has definitely been the clear favorite rookie of the year. And, I'll give Cole Anthony some time, but right now he's not there yet. He's still making some mistakes. He's not scoring at the level that we expected of him. But yeah, that's just my personal take.
Yeah, Lamelo. I would agree with Lamelo being the favorite as of right now to win Rookie of the Year. I believe yesterday he made his first start after because Terry Rozier was out, and that led to a win versus the Miami Heat, who they've beaten twice in a row now. And that's a team that's off to a rocky start, the Miami Heat. But yeah, Lamelo Ball, it's crazy because Lonzo Ball, when you look at him, one of the biggest differences between those two guys is like like his confidence as compared to how timid Lonzo can be at times. And Lamelo has all the twos. He's 6 foot. He's 6'7" point guard who has a great passing vision. The 3 point jump shot hasn't been as bad as some people said it would be. I mean, it's still a work in progress, but people thought he would be shooting sub 30%. So yeah, he's definitely the favorite right now. The Charlotte Hornets, I believe they're in the playoff picture as it currently stands. Yeah, they're eighth in the Eastern Conference, so they're they're in the playing tournament, but they're still a top eight seed. Which I mean, I don't think a lot of people had thought that this would be the case this year so far. But yeah, I agree. Lamelo Ball is probably the favorite as of right now to win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, definitely. And just kind of going off that about the Hornets, I don't know if you've been watching some of the games, but they're definitely one of the funner teams to watch
Yeah,
in this season, right? And Gordon Hayward's started to make a resurgence, which is kind of sad as a Boston Celtics fan, but it's good for him, happy for him. But it's definitely been a team that's been fun to watch. And like just kind of going off LaMelo Ball, his passing accuracy and the plays he makes, they're so, I want to say, unconventional or like not traditional, that it's just, not only has it been working for him, but it's super fun to watch. You know what I mean? Like those passes he makes and things like that.
yeah. I was actually going to mention Gordon Hayward. He's a guy that he has a pretty good case to be an All Star this year. He's having a bounce back year, and I think this is probably the not. It has to be the best season since he's left Utah, but this might be the best overall season of his career. I've caught a few Charlotte Hornet games. PJ Washington is a guy who I've been a fan of since he came in the league. But no, you're right. They're a fun team. They get up and down, and Lamelo is he's a very intriguing player because of his skill set. And if that 3 point jump shot can become consistent, that's the word. I think right now he has a pretty high ceiling, but with that, that can make him like an even better player, like at his peak.
Yeah, definitely, man. I can't wait to see what he does this season. It seems like he's growing with every single game that he plays. And he even got that one triple double as the youngest player. So shout out to him for that. Do you want to move on to the six men of the year?
Sure. Who did you have as your sixth man of the year?
All right, so this is gonna be kind of embarrassing because I know you had the same one as me, if I remember correctly. Man, we were wrong, yo. We both went with Norman Powell, and looking back on hindsight, yo, that's probably the worst player that we could have picked. Honestly, for the six man of the year award, it was kind of in the air because Lou Williams was separated. He's a former sixth man of the year, and then Montrezl Harrell was also the former, and both of them have been playing like complete garbage. In all honesty, but there was tons of players to choose from, and I thought that the Raptors have a huge hole on their team, especially with Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka gone. So I figured the person to step up would be Norman Powell, but that hasn't been the case at all. You know what I mean? In fact, Chris Boucher had a stretch of games where he looked like he would be the better candidate than Norman Powell. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I also had Norman Powell as my sixth man of the year. I had the same thought process based off the year last year. Norman Powell, he was underrated and he had a very good year. Um, and so I was definitely wrong about that up till now. There's definitely time for him to turn it around. But so far, I'd say my sixth man of the year pick, based off what we've seen so far this year, is Jordan Clarkson. He's having his best year of his career so far, averaging almost 18 points, 4.5 rebounds, and nearly 2 assists. He's playing on the Jazz, who are top three in the Western Conference right now, and just came off an 11 game win streak. I believe 11 or 12. That was they lost to the Denver Nuggets, but still very impressive. Um, he's been really hot to start the year. He's shooting 97% from the free throw line, which is crazy, and he's just having a very good year. So I say right now he's my pick.
Yeah, no, he's definitely my pick as well. Honestly, when the season started, I was like, yo, Karis LeVert is definitely making a strong case for him. But obviously he got traded, and then because of that, they found a problem with him. But like, hopefully he gets better, by the way. But now that he got traded, there's really no one else that I'm looking at other than Jordan Clarkson, and honestly, he's a pretty interesting case because he can literally, legitimately come off the bench and score like 20 to 30 points every single game. Although his averages are pretty low, he's just been a complete beast, and no one really has an answer for him coming off the bench.
Yeah, for sure. Did you wanna move on then to the most improved player? Do you want to go with that one next?
Yeah, let's go for that one.
All right. So initially, I had Christian Wood as my guy who would win the Most Improved Player award last year. In a small sample size, he started 12 games, averaged 21.9 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 2.3 assists. The assist to turnover ratio wasn't great, but I mean, he was on a bad team, so that's whatever. But one of my reasons for him being the most improved player was that if James Harden got traded, then he would become one of the focal points of their offense, and that is basically what has happened. Let me read you the point totals of his games since the James Harden trade. He scored 27, 24, 30, 20. He was hurt for three, and he missed 3 games, 22, 27, and 18. So he's been putting up huge numbers. It's not a runaway race, I'd say, because there's other guys in there who we can talk about in a little bit that are in that position. But I feel pretty good about that pick as of right now.
Yeah, he's definitely a dude that was on my radar as well. He has all the athletic tools, and he just looks like a beast when he's on the court. And even though last season I guess you can say he had junk minutes or they weren't really meaningful minutes, he was definitely putting up monster stats. And I knew I had a feeling that was going to kind of carry over. But me personally, I had my boy Colin Sexton as going to be the most improved player of the year. And at this point in time, I don't think there's a clear winner on who the six man of the or sorry the most improved player is going to be. But Colin Sexton has definitely had a case. He started off this year with 24 points per game, which is pretty good. And you got to remember he's been injured, so like some of these numbers are kind of disinflated. But he's doing that on almost 50% from the fields with 43.5% from three. And one of the knocks I guess I had on him was his playmaking. And although he hasn't been a great playmaker, he's definitely increased his assist numbers over time. And that combo of Sexland, so Colin Sexton and Darius Garland, it's been a pretty good duo to watch. And Garland kind of makes up for Sexton's lack of playmaking. But with that being said, he's still putting up better assist numbers than before. And on top of that, I know many of you guys have probably seen the game against the Nets where he just kind of flipped the switch and became Colin Sexton. You know what I mean? He he was shooting the ball lights out. He was basically making clutch plays, and I believe it was like 15 points straight or something like that going into overtime. So he was just a beast. And honestly, like I said before, I don't really think that there's a clear favorite, but Colin Sexton and Christian Wood are definitely the two that I believe are leading the pack.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that the playmaking is not really that big of a deal as of right now because Darius Garland has been their playmaker and he racks up pretty big assist totals. I think it's going to be a very close race. However, two guys that one guy for sure, and then the other guy I'll ask your opinion about. Jeremy Grant, man. I didn't expect him to. I expected him to kind of struggle with efficiency, being the number one option now on the Detroit Pistons, but that hasn't been the case. I think he's averaging 22 points per game, and he's doing it on solid efficiency. So, granted, the Pistons suck, but I mean there's not really much he can do when. I'm sorry, he's averaging 23 and a half points, but there's not much he can do when everyone else on when the team is just not very well constructed and it's not a good team. So he's another guy in the race. I have a question about another guy. Do you think do you think Jalen Brown should be in the race? Because I definitely
Yo,
think Jalen
I
Brown should be
swear
in
to
that race
God,
right now.
you have some type of password on my phone to see the notes that I have. Yep, Jalen Brown is the dude that I had as most improved as well. I don't think he's gonna win just because he's already he from last season he put up great numbers, but this
Yeah,
season he's putting out like astronomical numbers. You know what I mean? Like he's a legitimate in the talks of being an all-star starter, just the way
he
that he's
should be an
playing.
all-star starter.
Yeah, definitely. But like, see, my biggest knock once again was on his plate making. Last year, I believe he had more turnovers than he did assists, but he's just flipped that over. And although Tatum has been out a couple games and Kemba I wasn't there to start the season, I don't believe it's more of him just filling up those numbers for them. He's also just taking the ball and putting it into his hands. He's him and Smart are a pretty good duo. Smart is assisting him, and I believe both of them together are the number one. So Smart to Brown are the number one assisted duo in the league. And on top of that, he's leading the league in fast break points. So that's just a stat to look at. So he's definitely like an unstoppable force when it comes to the fast break. But on top of that, he's shooting the ball lights out. He's making good plays. He's defending the ball at a high level. Something that I kind of looked at last season and I was like, yo, he's not the best player. He's maybe a borderline all-star, but he's definitely made that leap. And some could even say he's become a superstar just by his level of play.
Yeah, man, it's crazy when he first came into the league in the 2017 season, like he couldn't really shoot. He struggled to like uh, string together dribble moves. Now you look at him; he has a pretty great handle. He can shoot, and like you said, but one of the biggest flaws in his game last year was the playmaking, and now he's corrected that, and he's become a much better playmaker. So he's a guy who, like you said, I think he should be starting in the All Star game this year. So far this year, he's been the Celtics' best player with Tatum being out because of health and safety protocols. Kemba Walker coming back from the knee injury and not being cardiac Kemba, but at this moment being chronic knee Kemba. He hasn't
No, cardio combo. He just out there
cardio
running
Kemba.
around.
Yeah, and yeah, he's been struggling a little bit since he's been back, and Jalen Brown has really risen to the occasion and picked up the slack. So I agree. I think Jalen Brown should be in that, but like you said, he put up great numbers last year as well, so it might be difficult for him to win it.
Yeah. I mean, he's putting up 7 more points than last year, which is just like awesome. And on top of that, he's shooting 44% from three. I don't want to go all fanboy on him, but like definitely a dude that's in the mix. And I just want to add one other dude in there, and he's also a dude that probably is going to become an all-star this year, and that's Malcolm Brogdon. And I know we talked about him before, but he's took a step up and he's made this Indiana Pacers team a lot better than a lot of people thought that they were going to be in the beginning of the season. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Malcolm Brogdon's been really good. I think I said he was the most underrated player in the league, and I think he should be an all-star as well. But last year he was really good to start the year as well, but then he got hurt and dealt with some injuries and that kind of made him take a step back. But so far this year he's been healthy and he's been putting up numbers as well. So I don't think he can win it because he was already great last year and this year sure he made another jump, but I don't think it's a big enough jump to put him in the most improved category, I would
Yeah,
say.
that's a fair point. Yeah, no, but I mean, it's we can get a clear consensus that it's between Christian Wood, Colin Sexton, and possibly Jalen Brown.
I would say Jalen Brown is in there for sure.
Word, word. Yeah, no, there's just definitely a ton of players that could compete for that most improved player. I wonder how it's going to go down to the end of the season.
Yeah. Do you wanna go with the pick for the defensive player of the year then?
Yeah, let's go for it. You can start off.
So initially I had Anthony Davis as my pick for defensive player of the year. My thought process was that with the loss of Dwight and JaVale, and then adding Marc Gasol, who Marc Gasol is still a smart defender. He has like the IQ is off the charts, and he knows positioning and rotations and such. He's not the athlete that Dwight and JaVale are. He doesn't offer the same vertical rim protection that those two did. And adding Montrezl Harrell, who's undersized, he's not a great defender. I thought that Anthony Davis would be the guy to pick up the slack this year. Um, I think he has a very good chance of winning it. The Lakers are one of the better defenses in the league currently, if not, I think the best defense in the league. But another guy who I think should be in the race as of right now, actually two guys. One of them you're not going to like is Rudy Gobert. The Jazz are top two or three in the Western Conference currently, and Rudy Gobert is a big reason for that. If you had trouble deciding who was the most important player to the Jazz, between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, you got to remember they beat the Mavs back to back. The second one they beat them by 30, and I don't think Donovan Mitchell played in either of those games. So I think he's the most important player on the Utah Jazz. And another guy is Miles Turner. I believe as of right now, Miles Turner is leading the league in blocks. The Pacers kind of struggle defensively with him off the floor, and he's been doing his thing as well. So he should be on that list.
That's a fair point. I mean, before I talk about those, let me talk about the player that I had as my defensive player of the year. So, I mean, I was a little bit biased here, and I went for my favorite personal player, and that's Marcus Smart. Even though through my biasness, he's still one of the greater defenders in the league. He's one of the best on-ball and perimeter defenders in the entire league. With that being said, I mean, there's not much he can really improve on defense. Like he's one of those few guards that can actually guard all the way up to the four position, sometimes on occasion even the five position. But as it stands now, I don't really think maybe he's in the mix, but he's definitely not a clear favorite or anything like that. And he also did just get injured, so hoping he gets better soon. But the Celtics as a whole have not been the defensive team that they were known for, so I can't really go and vouch for my guy Marcus Smart. So with that being said, I'm just gonna kind of talk about some of the players that you mentioned. So Rudy Gobert, man. See, I feel like the Jazz as a whole. I mean, he's more of like a paint protector, rim protector. But I mean, yeah, I get that he's important to the team. But you did mention that they beat the Mavs two times. I'm gonna be honest. As I'm watching the Mavs, they're not all chalk up to what they're supposed to be. Like they're not as good as a lot of people think that they are. And maybe it's just a slow start, but that's just one occasion. But I feel like as I'm watching the Jazz, it's more of a team basketball game, and I gotta chalk that one up to their coach Quinn Snyder. So I don't. It's not necessarily that Rudy Gobert is a bad defender or anything like that. I feel like a lot of the team's success is not solely on Rudy Gobert. It's as the team in a whole. Like the way they play offense is just it's like beautiful to watch. They pass the ball around. A lot of these guys aren't prolific scorers. I mean, you got like Joe Ingles and guys like that out there, and they're still dropping high numbers on the offensive end. With that being said, I definitely think that Gobert should be in the mix, but I think the clear favorite as of now is definitely Miles Turner. And that dude, he's a dude that I was like last year I thought he was gonna be, he had a terrible year last year and he kind of bounced back and now he's one of the best defenders in the league. Not just a rim protector, but he's also keeping up on the perimeter. He looks a lot faster than last year. So definitely think he's a clear favorite.
Another guy that, sorry, I just wanted to add real quick, and I'm not even saying this to be a biased fan. I think Kawhi has a pretty good chance. I don't know about winning Defensive Player of the Year because it's difficult for a wing player to win it, and a guard particularly. But I think he has a good case to be on the first team All Defense this year. Last year, I believe he was second team All Defense. That was more so just of a reputation award, in my opinion. I don't think he was that great last year. Paul George took a lot of the tough assignments and the first option assignments last year in games. But this year, Kawhi has really stepped it up defensively. Everybody's seen the play of him just snatching the ball out of De'Aaron Fox's hands, but he's been doing much more than that. He's been guarding for the most part the opposing team's best player, and he's been locking up while also being a better passer and scoring at an efficient level. So I think he's a guy who deserves to be in the mix as well.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely a guy that's been a great defender throughout his entire career. It's tough, like you said, for a wing player to get it, but I mean, Miles Turner is averaging nearly 4 blocks per game, which is just insane. As it stands now, I kind of see it hard for him to be able to get the defensive player of the year, but he definitely should be in the mix.
All right. So with that being said, do you want to move on to the MVP pick?
Yeah, let's go for it, bro.
All right. So my MVP, the pick that I had was Luka Doncic, and I think I gave sleeper picks as well. My reasoning was that he was the heavy favorite going into the year for the MVP. He was coming off a great year where he was first team All NBA. Mavericks were the seventh seed. They gave the Clippers a pretty good fight in the first round before losing in six. Um, and I thought he would be more efficient this year, particularly as a free throw shooter and a 3 point shooter. So far, particularly from three, that hasn't been the case. One of the advantages I thought that he would have was that Porzingis would be out to start the year, and Porzingis missed the first 9 games, and that in those 9 games that Luka would be able to lead them to a positive record while also putting up monster stats. So, who did you have as your MVP pick?
Well, originally I had Luca as well, but just for the sake of argument purposes, I decided to kind of stray off that and go on to a different player because we're kind of agreeing on a lot of them. But I went with Paul George, and I mean it wasn't all just for shits and giggles. I did believe that he was going to have a way better year than he did last year, and I thought a lot of people were underestimating how good of a player he really is. I think at best he can be a top 10 player, but I honestly thought that he would lead the Clippers to a first seeded in the West playoffs spot. You know what I mean? But with that being said, he kind of has done that. He hasn't. I guess you could say him and Kawhi are kind of interchangeable. So for that reason, I can't really say that he's an MVP candidate, but I would definitely put him within the top 5 or 6 players currently. Who do you think is leading the MVP race right now? And this is definitely interesting.
Yeah, so this is tough currently because there's so many guys having great years. Um, Top three, I would say that these three guys have to be in your top three. In any order is fine, but these three guys are in there. I would say is Embiid, best record in the Eastern Conference. The Sixers lost to the Detroit Pistons without him. Jokic, who was one of my sleeper picks, which I was right about. The other guy was Dame, who I was very off about. Jokic, who's been amazing. He put 47, which tied his career high on Gobert's head in a game that wasn't close throughout. And my third guy is Kawhi. Like you said, him and Paul George have been the two guys that have led the Clippers to the first seed in the Western Conference. At the beginning, Paul George was ahead of Kawhi, I'd say, in the MVP race. Paul George came out shooting, I think he was shooting 50% from three for a while. He's kind of started regressing a little bit to the mean, but he's still been amazing. I would say he's in the top 7, 8 MVP candidates, but Kawhi since then has surpassed him, I'd say. Uh, Kawhi started off a little bit slow, sorry, and he's really picked it up since then, and he's just been amazing as of late, putting up pretty big scoring numbers and also playing elite level defense. With the Clippers being the first seed, I'd say he's the third guy who should be in the top three.
That's interesting. I definitely agree with the first two that you mentioned. The third one, I mean, we're going to talk about that, but I literally just got a tweet right now that said the player of the months for December and January are the Nuggets, Nikola Jokic, and the Sixers, Joel Embiid. And honestly, this is probably the most interesting MVP race, just because two of the top candidates are both big men, and they have very different skill sets. So it's definitely interesting to see who will take it over, or if this will carry over or not, or if somebody else will come from behind. But with that being said, like Jokic, he's basically, or he's not averaging a triple double, but he's right around the corner, which is amazing. I mean, Jamal Murray hasn't really been much of a help, and he's just been putting that Nuggets team on his back. And it looks like they need a lot of help, especially with Jeremy Grant gone. I mean, he was honestly a really big personnel on their team. But with him being gone, Michael Porter Jr. was out with health and safety protocols. But with all that, Jokic has just been a monster. He's like assisting the ball. He's basically the core of that Nuggets team. But on the other side, you got Embiid, who's just been dominant, and that's just completely different from Jokic because Jokic has been dominant in the terms of skill and passing and leadership, but Embiid has a different form of that. It's just been through post play, and even his shooting has been pretty well, and his defensive anchor is something that Jokic hasn't been able to do. So in my opinion, those two are definitely the most interesting, and I think one of them are going to end up running away with the MVP trophy. But for the third guy, I mean, like you said, Kawhi and Paul George have been, like a really good tandem. Both of them been going back and forth and kind of leading that Clippers team to a number one seed. But this one's honestly been really hard for me. This third place, I have it like between like four players. So it's between, like you said, Kawhi, Paul George, LeBron, and KD. And I'm having a hard time kind of deciding who should be in there. I mean, KD's averaging great numbers. I think he's at honestly like a career high of 31 points per game, and he's doing that with, or yeah, he's doing that with like James Harden and Kyrie on his team. Obviously, this is a average for the entire season, but still he's leading that Nets team. And then you got LeBron, who's probably playing one of his better seasons in terms of efficiency. He's shooting above 40% from three, which is something that we haven't seen in LeBron. And also Anthony Davis hasn't been playing to the level that we expect of him. So for that reason, I kind of got to put LeBron in there as well. And I think over time we'll kind of see who's going to run away with it. And like you said, Kawhi has just been a monster as well. So it's really tough for me to decide who the third place should be. But in terms of first and second, I think these guys are a big step ahead of the guys that are placed or mentioned at the third place.
I think it's the league has really come a long way since DeAndre Jordan, run and dunk and nothing else. Was first team All NBA a couple years back, and now you have two transcendent centers, two transcendent talents at the big man position who are top two in the MVP race. I think that's really cool. Um, both those guys have a great case right now. Like you said, Jamal Murray hasn't been that guy. He's been dealing with some injuries, some bumps and bruises, but he's just been very inconsistent. And Jokic he's the engine of that team, and they're the fourth seed currently in the Western Conference, I believe, fourth or fifth. But yeah, he's been doing his thing and he's been playing very well. Embiid, like I said, the 76ers are the first seed in the Eastern Conference. And without Embiid, they lost to the Detroit Pistons, who are the second or worst team in the Eastern Conference. And Ben Simmons, he's been great defensively, but offense has kind of been a little tough for him. But as of right now, I'd probably give the edge to Jokic just because Tobias Harris, Doc Rivers has gotten the best out of Tobias Harris, and I don't think the Nuggets will finish like fourth in the Western Conference. I think they'll finish either second or third.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. Yeah, I can see them. Like they came off to a slow start. So, and on top of that, this entire season, a lot of teams have been dealing with health and safety protocols and everything like that. So, the standings aren't probably what they should be or what they would be without all of this happening. But
Like the
I
Mavs and the
definitely,
Heat, for example. Like I think the Heat are 13th in the Eastern Conference or something like that, and they had like Jimmy Butler felt like missed the entire season. He just recently came back. He's been putting up numbers, though it has been in losses. But and the Mavericks, I think they've lost six straight. And by the way, in those six games, Chris Paul, or I'm sorry, in the last 5 games, just Chris Paul has been averaging 26, 6, and 9 on 53, 39, 96 shooting. And they've been hooping. And last night, Chris Paul had 34, 99. So the Mavericks are in a tough way. Um, so yeah, the standings this year are just really weird with people being in and out, injuries, the whole nine.
yeah, definitely. Before we get into who should be the championship team or who we predicted to be the championship team, this is something that we didn't do on the last podcast or whatever. Yo, do you want to talk about who you think is going to be coach of the year? I know we didn't mention that in the earlier podcast.
Man, that's tough. Coach of the
Yeah,
year.
sorry, I'm like throwing
No,
you
no,
on the
you're good.
spot here.
You're good. Um, I'm not going to say who I think should win it. I would say who I have up top right now. Um, Nate Bjorkgren of the Indiana Pacers. He has them playing a whole different style. They're playing fast. They're shooting threes, and it's really been a breath of fresh air. Last year, when people thought that this Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner thing wouldn't work, and I was one of those people. I said that it doesn't really make sense to pay Miles Turner a whole lot if you have Sabonis and he's your number one, he's your best big. But Nate Bjorkgren has really turned that around. He has them playing, like I said, a faster pace, and they've been playing well. Another guy who I'd say is up there is Quinn Snyder. The Jazz are third in the Western Conference, or second. So I'm sorry, I don't know exactly. And kind of similarly, they've been focusing a lot on the three ball. I think as of right now, they're like the best 3-point shooting team in the league. Royce O'Neal is having a pretty solid year from three. Mike Conley is having a resurgence, and where they're doing all this with Bogdan Bogdanovic, who I'd say is their best shooter. He's been relatively not his to his standard up till now. He's been starting to pick it up as of late, but to start the season he was really struggling. And the third guy I'd say is, and I don't even mean this to be biased, but Ty Lue. Last year there wasn't really much of a system under Doc Rivers, but Ty Lue has the Clippers passing the ball a lot more. They're shooting a lot more threes, and he's just really changed the identity of the Clippers this year. And I think he should definitely be in the race as well, considering Clippers as of right now are the one seed.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with a lot of the picks that you had. I mean, Nate Bjorken, dude, he's been unreal. Like this Pacers team, like at the beginning of the season, if you had told me, yo, they were gonna be like one of the better teams in the East, I wasn't scared of this team at all. But now they have like a really complete team. I mean, they've got Malcolm Brogdon, great player, and just all these guys, they've been meshing really well together. And on top of that, their team isn't even fully healthy. Got to remember, T.J. Warren went out for probably the season, or at least indefinitely. And then they've got Karis LeVert, who's another player that has not played for them yet. And Jeremy Lamb is just ramping up his activity as well. So that team is not even fully healthy yet. Yet they're winning ton of games. They're very competitive. They're very gritty, and a great team. And definitely a breath of fresh air when you want to go watch them. But my leader would probably be Quinn Snyder, and I know I mentioned him earlier, but like I didn't have the Jazz making the playoffs, and that was kind of my hot take going into the season. But they proved me wrong, and I feel like an idiot. But like, it just didn't add up to me. Like, they didn't really have so much offense outside of Donovan Mitchell and Jordan Clarkson, so I didn't really see how they could compete for that high seeding in the Western Conference. But like, I watched a few games, and I noticed that their ball movement is just insane. The way they pass and make plays and just do, and overall, just play the game of basketball is very beautiful. So gotta say I was really wrong on that, and I credit a lot of that to their coach Quinn Snyder.
Another guy who I didn't mention, but I think should, and I don't think he'll win it because I don't think this team will have enough wins. But Steven Silas, the head coach of the Rockets, since the James Harden trade, the Rockets are the best defensive team in the league, and the Nets are the worst defensive team in the league. Which I mean, we don't have to talk about it, but you remember that game versus the Wizards where they like gave up like 139 points in like 38 minutes or something like that. Um, but he has them playing well, and I didn't think they'd be good defensively, considering Christian Wood. He's a good offensive player, kind of struggles defensively. Same with DeMarcus Cousins. I didn't think they'd really be that good, but he's getting the most out of guys like Jay Sean Tate. Um, Eric Gordon's actually been playing solid defense, which I mean he's never been known as a defender, but he's been playing well. Victor Oladipo, John Wall looks like he's back, so he's another guy who I'd say is he's in that conversation as of right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the Rockets are on a 6 game win streak, and like, with their personnel, that's pretty impressive. I mean, some of the teams haven't been really the best, but definitely somebody to keep an eye on. And who knows, maybe even the Rockets will sneak into the playoffs. They're definitely going to be in that playing tournament, though.
This sounds I'm sorry. This sounds like kind of narrative-y and such, but the Rockets now I think they have something to prove. John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins, like they've come out and said that they were disrespected when James Harden said that these guys aren't good enough and we don't have what it takes to win. And these guys they want to prove that wrong and show that they're still like good players. So they're playing with a chip on their shoulder, and the underdog teams for the most part, they usually overachieve. So I could definitely still see the Rockets being in the playoffs.
Yeah, and a guy that none of us mentioned was Victor Oladipo. He's another dude that the Pacers kind of just gave up on him or didn't really want him. Or for whatever reason, he's not on the Pacers anymore. But he definitely has something to prove as well. So definitely a team that's going to be fun to watch going forward. That being said, you want to jump into who our predictions were for the championship team?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go for it. Who did you have as the NBA champions this year?
I had the Clippers, and I mean, I know you didn't believe in me, but like they're currently first in the entire NBA, so gotta chalk that up to my genius. No, I'm just messing, but they definitely have a ton of talent, and a new head coach, new breath of fresh air, and a lot of things going on in the league. But I definitely think that they're still gonna win the NBA championship. What about you? Who did you have?
So I had the Lakers winning the championship, and like you did, I'm gonna stick with that prediction. Anthony Davis, and my reasoning for that is LeBron is LeBron. He's gonna be putting up these numbers till he's like 45. Probably not, but you know what I mean. He's continuing to age like fine wine. Like you said, this year is his best year shooting from three, and he's in year 18. Hashtag year 18, I guess. But he's been amazing. And my reasoning is that Anthony Davis, like you said, he hasn't been like the Anthony Davis from last year. He was first team All NBA, and I'm pretty sure he was first team All Defense last year. And he hasn't been that guy so far this year, at least on offense. He's been great defensively, but like he's gonna pick that up sooner or later. And when he does, the Lakers, as of right now, are the best defense in the league. And once he starts putting in that work on offense as well, I think they'll be even scarier. They still have like Dennis Schroeder struggling a little bit shooting from three, but he adds some downhill to that team as if they needed more, considering they have LeBron and Anthony Davis. Um, but I'm still roll with the Lakers as my picks for the championship.
And man, no love for the Eastern Team Conference, huh?
Hey man, I mean, dude, I thought the Nets. I don't know if this makes sense, but I thought they had a better chance to win the championship before they made that whole trade than they do now.
Honestly, you know what? I honestly agree with you. Like I said, I've said this many times in the podcast. They clearly look like the best team in the East. They had a great mix of players. Karis LeVert coming off that bench. It was like, who's going to stop Kyrie? Okay, give the ball to KD. Who's going to stop KD? Oh, they're finally on the bench resting. Oh, no, Karis LeVert is coming in, and he's just going to drop like 10, 15, 20 off the bench. And it just felt like it was like so annoying just to watch them destroy and demolish teams after team, especially when that Christmas game against the Celtics. But they kind of give that up, and for what? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like James Harden's obviously a great player, but I feel like they could have been just fine just having KD, Kyrie, and all those pieces plus all their picks because they've went all in on offense because sure the defense before the trade was a little suspect, but like I said, they're the worst defensive team in the NBA since that trade, and if they continue at this rate, they're going to be the worst defensive team of all time. I think they have like a 119 point something defensive rating, and that's the worst defensive rating in NBA history. Granted, it's like a 6 or 7 game sample size, so it'll get better, but like they're a team that you look at, they don't really have much defense, like at all. Their center position, like for Westbrook in that game, it was a runway to the rim. Like he was just getting anywhere he wanted, and he was scoring on anybody. So I still think that they have a great chance to make it out of the Eastern Conference, but it all depends on matchups. And if they match up with the Lakers, like who's going to stop LeBron from getting to the rim whenever he wants? Who's going to stop Anthony Davis from getting whatever he wants inside? Like he's going to torture DeAndre Jordan, and who's going to stop? Like, and this is even to a lesser extent, but even Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder is a guy who can get downhill, and they don't have anybody to guard that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, they did add two players in there. I guess you could say like waiver wire pickups or whatever. However, they acquired them. They got Norvel Pelly or something like that. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, homie, but I remember seeing him on the Sixers, and he was a pretty good rim protector. But I mean, outside that, he's kind of like a Mitchell Robinson s player, like very active, high vertical, great rim protector, but gets into a lot of foul trouble. And the other dude they picked up for probably defensive purposes is Iman Shumpert, but I mean he's kind of old now, so and he hasn't really seen the floor. But you know, it remains to be seen. But like, do you believe in any of the other teams in the Eastern Conference, like the Bucks or Sixers, or maybe even the Celtics? Or are you just going clearly on the Nets?
I think all those teams have a good chance to do it. Damn, you just left Miami out of there, huh?
I mean,
Just
they're not
like
in the
just like
playoff
that.
picture as of now, but I had to
um,
do it, man.
uh, See, like my problem with the Bucks is that Giannis continues to be misused. Stop using him as the ball handler. Use him as the screener, and the roll man. If you do that, I think they'll be in better shape. Um, my next, what was the next team you said? The The
I'm just
Celtics,
saying,
right?
like, are you sold on any of the other teams, like I guess the Sixers, the Celtics, whoever?
I mean, like it depends on matchup, right? Like if the 76ers match up with the Brooklyn Nets, like Joel Embiid is gonna torture DeAndre Jordan. He's gonna average like 15 free throws a game and probably average 40 and 17 or something. That's obviously an over exaggeration, but you get what I mean. He's gonna kill that team. We saw the Nets. We saw the Bucks and the Nets play already. Giannis was kind of getting whatever he wanted in the paint, but I'm not sure if the rest of those guys can really step up come playoff time. Even though Chris Middleton last year in the playoffs, he had his best game when Giannis went out versus the Miami Heat, and they ended up winning that game. I'm not sure if they can really do that, and I don't think any team in the Eastern Conference has like the personnel to defend all three of those guys at once. You know what I mean? Granted, I don't think any team in the league really has the personnel for that. But um, yeah, it's going to be. I think the Nets, their space or whatever the word is for error, is very large in the East. But once it gets to the West and they have to play, say, the Lakers and the Clippers, probably the Lakers. Um, I think they're gonna that margin for error. There's the word. The margin for error is probably become razor thin, particularly versus the Lakers.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair point. I mean, the Lakers and the Clippers are two teams on the Western Conference that, like, there's a big and a huge, I guess you could say, gap between them and the other teams. Like, yeah, the Jazz and the Nuggets are pretty good teams, but they're not at the level of the Clippers and the Lakers. So, regardless, with that being said, I mean, if the Nuggets or the Jazz were in the Eastern Conference, they'd probably be up there in the second or first even seeds in the East. So, you
Yo,
know,
I got a question for you. Sorry for
yeah,
cutting
what's
you
up?
off.
No, no, you good. What's up?
So, say that hypothetically that Utah's red hot 3 point shooting continues throughout the entire year, and then they go into the playoffs and continue this level of shooting. Say they make the NBA Finals. How are the Nets gonna defend Rudy Gobert?
Man, they don't need to defend him, bro. He averages like 10 points a game, bro. I don't know what you're talking about. I really don't know what you're talking about.
Man,
But yeah, all jokes aside, dude, they're shooting the lights out like 40-50% from three. I don't know if that's sustainable. Like you gotta remember, Mike Conley last year was so bad, and I remember we were all talking about him. Like, yo, like this guy is supposed to be like a borderline all star, or the most supposedly the most underrated player in the league, and he just looked like garbage. But this year, he's really taken that step forward. But I don't know how long this is going to be sustainable for, and we've seen it time and time again. You know, they get to the first or second round of the playoffs, and they just end up getting bounced because of their lack of talent and depth. But you know, we're gonna have to see this year if they're gonna make it or not.
yeah, for sure. Like you said, I
But
don't.
let me just say one thing though.
Sure.
If I was the Nets and I was worried about defending somebody, my least worried player is definitely gonna be Rudy Gobert. I'm not gonna be worried about him. I'm not gonna lose sleep over him.
Yeah, I mean the Nets, their biggest nightmare is probably Anthony Davis because, I mean, you just saw like DeAndre Jordan can't defend anybody, bro. Like he's lazy, he can't rotate, and he's old. So, um, if he matches up with Anthony Davis, he's gonna be put in the torture chamber, man, and it's gonna be a long 48 minutes for either him or Jeff Green or whoever they decide to put on him.
Yeah, but honestly, I can see the Nets making some moves before the trade deadline. I mean, they must have a plan. There's no way that they're just gonna take on no rim protection and kind of just shoot for the finals like that. They're
Yeah,
probably gonna make a move. Yeah.
there's no chance. Like they got to know that, like, to be a championship contender, which I mean they have those three on offense, which is better than any trio in the NBA currently. Um, but like their defense is just so bad. And there was this talk that Andre Drummond is going to get bought out and signed with them. Why would, like, what sense does that make for the Cavs if you know that a team wants Andre Drummond? Like, why would you just buy him out rather than trade him to that team and try to get something back? Granted, Brooklyn doesn't have any picks left. They don't have any. They don't like really have any assets, I should say. But hey, what if they're banking on Landry Shamet going back to year one Landry Shamet, and because he's been awful this year. And what if they try to get some pieces from the Nets for Andre Drummond? It would just wouldn't make any sense for them to just straight up buy him out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. This is probably like a quarter of the season done now. So there's definitely a long ways to go before we hit the finals or the playoffs or even the trade deadline for that matter. So yeah, with that being said, do you want to kind of wrap it up?
Yeah, for sure. Do we have anything else to talk about, or was that it?
I think that was pretty much it for this episode.
All right, for sure. You want to take us out then?
Yeah, I'll take this out. All right, guys. It's been 10 episodes, and we appreciate making content for you guys and you guys watching and listening to our content. So definitely appreciate you guys for that. If you guys want to check us out, we're on YouTube at the East Coast Browncast, or we're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or anywhere that you listen to your podcast at Push the Tempo Podcast with Aray and Kyle. So you guys can listen to us there. We're on Twitter as the East Coast Browncast and also Instagram under there as well. So you guys want to catch us there, leave a comment or something like that, mean a lot to us. And if you guys want to be featured on an episode for a hot take or something like that, leave that comment. We'll be sure to add you for the next episode. And with that being said, y'all, take it easy. Peace out.